Hey guys, Coach Austin here again with the Coach's Compound. Now what I want to talk to you today about is the assessment tool, the overhead squat. So for the most part in the CrossFit realm, when a new member or client comes in, what is the thing that you do to assess that client's needs for mobility and strength? Usually it comes out to be the overhead squat. So what you do is you ask your client to hold a PVC pipe above your head and squat down. Usually what we see here is, okay, so when I watch Joe do an overhead squat, if I can see that his ankles aren't bending properly, his hips can't reach full flexion or extension, his shoulders are tight, he rounds forward, and whatever else it may happen there. Now the problem that I have with the overhead squat as an assessment tool is that it involves too much skill. So for the most part, if I had Joe come to me for personal training or even in group classes and I asked him to do an overhead squat, and previously this man has never overhead squatted in his life, just throwing him into this idea of, okay, just hold this above your head and squat, it's kind of obvious what you're going to see. It's going to look like this. Okay, probably not even below parallel, arms falling forward, and shins being straight, because he has no idea what he's doing. So when it comes down to the overhead squat as an assessment tool, we need to keep in mind that we can't just throw our clients into a new movement that is arguably one of the most complex movements for the body, especially when they're untrained. So one thing that you can do instead of using the overhead squat to assess ankle flexion, knee flexion, hip flexion, shoulder flexibility as well, is that you can merely see them move through different movements. So with the overhead squat, what I'm looking for first is their ankle. So we can see first is you have the ankle and ask them to come forward, to bend their knee forward. So you can see my knees are able to travel very far over my toes. You can see both sides. If I was looking at myself in this circumstance, I could see, okay, this side is a little bit more limited than this side is. My right leg can much more easily go into that position than my left leg. So you can then be like, okay, keep in mind that left ankle has a little bit of restriction. Next one you could do, have your client pull their knee up to their chest. I don't know if you noticed, my right knee, it just flies up there. Very, very easy. When I do my left side, I have to take a little bit longer and I have to kind of wiggle my way all the way up for my rib cage to touch my thigh. Okay, left hip also has some restriction. And then with the shoulders, have them stand in anatomical position, arms above their head. Is the rib cage flaring? Are their biceps by their ears? Is it in front of them? Is it too far behind them? Is it far away? Are their arms bent? You can then start to see different pieces of the overhead squat and break them down individually. So it makes sense to literally everyone. Hey, Joe, if you could just bend your knee, keep your heel down, bend your knee as far forward as you can. Sweet. Okay? Now let's do knee to your chest, blah, 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 arms. And guess what? That took just as long as having him go, okay, Joe, now try to keep your chest up. I can't. Okay, so now try to sit down and bring your knees all the way down in the bottom of a squat. Okay, so notice how long you have to take to teach this skill. It's no longer just something you can do to have a random person walk in the gym. Overhead squat, I want to see what it looks like. You can actually take them through individualized movements for different parts of the joints, and it will make much more sense. So then after I've assessed those certain joints, what you can do is then add in the overhead squat. Because what all these movements were, checking all these different ranges of motion, is flexibility. Seeing how far can the joint, the literal joint itself, just be taken. Can someone externally take the joint further? Mobility is how far can you and your musculature take the joint. So with an overhead squat, you're using yourself, you're using your musculature, especially with a PVC pipe that weighs like a gram, it's nothing at all. So when you're using the PVC pipe, you're not gonna have that external force to help you into that motion. So when I do my overhead squat, and I've already assessed my left ankle is a little bit restricted, my left hip is a little bit restricted, so you can see, okay, it makes sense. He's shifting a little bit to his right side because he doesn't like being in that super flexed position on pretty much his whole entire left leg. So it begins to paint a picture of your client. And then as you go on with your client as well, you can do the necessary things and mobility drills and strength drills in order to help those deficiencies. So instead of using the overhead squat blindly, hoping that you can actually see what is going on with your client's body, assess them. Actually look at the joint itself. Don't just throw them under the bus and hope that they can understand how to move their body without you teaching them. Make sure to stay tuned to all the videos on our YouTube channel as well, and thanks for watching, guys.